Dr. Ethan's going to go into like learning how to master your sleep routine.
Yep. So I would say there's so many ways you can break this down, but I've went with four core principles, and then that I think relate most to everyone. And then there's a fifth one I'll save for the final. But
Right,
uh,
right.
yes, so this is a good time to kind of write this down. So Dr. Shannon actually hit on it already a little bit. Caffeine intake, just because most people drink caffeine, not everybody. Some people say I hate coffee and I don't get that, but it's whatever. Just is I love my coffee. I know we do too. So caffeine wise, waiting in the morning, the first thing you can do to ensure quality sleep, or at least to set yourself up for success, would be to wait that 60 to 120 minutes after you wake. So get your light in, get all that, and then have your caffeine in about 60 to 120 minutes. Okay, and reason being is like Dr. Shannon said, you've got those adenosine receptors. That's just a neurotransmitter that is bound to all those receptors in that part of your brain. That's what keeps you nice and rested and sleepy. That's the sleepy feeling. When you get up and that starts to clear, all that adenosine, your body picks it up and takes it away. That's when you start to feel awake, and light actually increases that process as well. But caffeine binds to those receptors and blocks them, so adenosine can't bind to them, which would make you feel tired. But since caffeine's bound to those receptors, adenosine's floating around, you don't get tired. That's why caffeine works the way that it does. So to have all of those receptors clear, it takes about 60 to 120 minutes after you wake for that to happen. And then if you do that, you'll find that you're not going to have an afternoon crash as well. So you can drink your coffee and you don't have an afternoon crash. That's pretty cool if you can wait your 60 to 120 minutes. So I'd recommend that, and then that kind of sets you up for success later as well. Two of the things we've touched on: temperature. So early in the morning, get up, get moving, elevate your temperature, whether that's with a cold plunge, which is pretty aggressive, but it's a great way to just really quickly spike your core body temperature and start that process. Some people prefer that, most don't, but I would always recommend it than not. A cold shower is probably the least aggressive way to do it, but at least it gives you something and raises that core body temperature to some degree. And this is to get that cortisol to go up. That's a core body temperature. We want the cortisol to go up. We could also do it through exercise. Okay, so you could get up, you could get moving. So either one of those will do the job, but a combination of would probably be the best. Okay, so that would be in the morning. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're winding down, that you're not eating 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. If you're going to have a snack, if you're starving, if you're like, oh man, I've made it that 3 hours, I'm going to bed and my stomach is just growling, I need something to eat. Try to make sure that it's more of a protein or fat-based meal rather than a high carbohydrate meal. Reason being is because if you eat a lot of carbohydrates, your insulin's going to spike, and if your insulin spikes, cortisol spikes with it, and then there you go. Your body temperature is immediately raised because because you wanted a cookie or whatever else. It's an easy thing to fix. It's tough, but if you're hungry, reach for, preferably don't eat, but if you have to, I would say more of a fat or protein-based meal. Skip the carbs late. Okay, so that would be in the morning. At the end of the day, body temperature wise, those are two good ways you can control it. Also, just setting a lower temperature when you go to bed, so you can get into that kind of lower temperature feel. Right, you want your bedroom to be nice and cool. You don't want it to be blazing hot. Um, Bundle up a little bit, keep it cold. Don't need to go to bed sweating. So then, light would be the next piece. So we've covered caffeine, temperature. Let's go over light. So light early in the morning, that first 30 minutes. Let's get up. Let's get some light, preferably natural light. Okay, so we want that natural light to kind of wake ourselves up. To get that to increase that cortisol spike, you have receptors in your optic nerve that go straight to your hypothalamus, and it gives you the wake up call. So there you go. So you need that. You need the light early in the morning. And at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're blocking out most of that light. Unnatural light, even natural light, right? It should be no light. I mean, you don't want to walk around and be feeling for things and not know where you're going. You can have lower light, but the bottom line, it needs to be less bright than it was during the day, and that gradually needs to kind of taper off as you go to bed, right? So we're not eating a lot before we go to bed. We're making sure that the lights are nice and dim. I would say, and then at night, so yeah, nice and dim. So I would say, most importantly though, because there's this extra component to sleep, spatial association, something we don't really think about. We've got our our memory in our brain, so what you remember, if you could think back to what you did yesterday, that's your hippocampus that does that portion of your brain. And so the hippocampus relates directly to your sleep patterns and sleep associations as your spatial memory. You know where your bedroom's at. You know when you lie down in bed, I'm in my bed, I'm ready to go to sleep. That's what your hippocampus does for you. So, what we should really aim to do is make sure there's not a giant bright TV in our room and that our room's not the entertainment center of the world. And we should make sure that, it's not social media center of the world. We should make sure that when we go in the bedroom, we know that we're going to sleep, right? We're going to partake in sleep. We're going to bed. So we want to make sure that we create those spatial associations to really help us out. Okay. Lastly, we need a clear nervous system. We need to make sure that we're getting adjusted and keeping that clear to optimize all of this, to making sure that our hypothalamus is working correctly. All those nerve associations are working optimally and as they should, right? And that's where the adjustment comes into play, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But that would be the fifth component to tie everything together. Okay.
It's good. Okay. So as Dr. Ethan was saying, so first off, aren't they great? Good stuff. They're smart. They're smart. They push me, which is great. So, really great stuff. So, think about all the things we're talking about, the bumper lanes and all the, the supplementation, and you can have I always get this a lot. So what kind of bed do I need to have? And all those things are important, and the answer to that is that whatever is going to feel best to you. But I don't think that there's one bed out there that's going to change your life. It's just whatever bed that you can lay on and feel like, I can get good sleep here. But I say all that to say that if your nervous system is taxed, right? If you're in fight or flight, if you've got chronic irritation neurologically, structurally, you're always going to be in fight or flight. So your GABA, your neurotransmitters are always going to be in a state of up here. Even if I cold plunge, even if I sauna at night, even if I have no TV in my room, like. Don't get me wrong, like those things are very, very important, but you have to understand, people come to us all the time and are like, hey, I'm doing all these things and I'm taking the supplements, but I'm still not sleeping very good. Or maybe you're the person that's like, man, I'm getting adjusted, I'm doing those things, but there's other things in my life that I need to change. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the person that's like, I'm doing all these other things, but I'm not taking and clearing the neurology that feeds all those other parts of the brain. So we're going to talk about the power of the adjustment. And I'll, doing this for almost 13 years now, the number one side effect of chiropractic that I've seen in 13 years is myself and my kids sleep better. I just had someone the other day say, I have lost 5 pounds and I have no idea why. And the reason why it is they lost 5 pounds, they said, I've not changed any of my diet. But they are getting 8 hours of quality sleep, which is metabolism regulation. They're not in fight or flight. And their metabolism, their hormones are now balanced, and they're naturally beginning to lose weight because they're sleeping better because of chiropractic. Does that make sense? So I want to talk about like the power of an adjustment, because I think sometimes we think, well, hey, hey docs, can you crack my neck? Like, can you? I want to hear that pop. Like. What I want you to understand is that the adjustment is way more than a pop or a crack. And unfortunately, in the world we're living in today, you can go on YouTube and you can find a chiropractor that's harnessing somebody. It's like actually like an addiction to go on there and to see people being popped and cracked, which I personally believe is a horrible representation of our profession, because there's a specificity and there's a neurology to what we're doing. Right? If there wasn't a specificity to what we're doing, then we would never take an x-ray. We would never do an exam. We would just feel around a little bit, pop a bunch of bones, and I can teach my 9-year-old to do that. Right? But there's a specificity to the adjustment. And I also get this other question of like, hey, why did you do something different to me today versus yesterday? Have you guys ever, right? Why did you use the instrument up here, but you did it yesterday, but you didn't do it the other day? Because there's a specificity. Some of you are walking into our office and you are in massive fight or flight. You're not getting any sleep, you're drinking too much, you're living off of caffeine, and your body is in fight or flight hyper drive. And if myself, Dr. Ethan, or Dr. Shannon just, and you're just, wow, that felt amazing, and then bam, crash. So there's a specificity to what we're doing because every single time you walk in here, we're reading and your nervous system is telling us what you need when you need it. Does that make sense? So why are we doing something different? One of the hardest things in the world is trying to get everybody to do chiropractic similarly, right? I think we do a really good job of that, but the specificity behind the adjustment is what I want to talk about. So your brain and your spinal cord, right? Your brain and your spinal cord are the central nervous system. It's what God put in the body to literally act as like a circuitry or the circuit breaker to everything, okay? It just happens to be surrounded by the skull and in the spine or the bones in the spine, okay? When those bones or the structure of your spine shifts because of stress, because of a trauma, because of chemical trauma, because of emotional trauma, aka a lack of the 5 essentials, what that can do is that can create tension and stress on the nervous system, triggering certain parts of the brain to create harmful neurochemical pathways. And what this can do is this can throw off a part of our nervous system called the autonomic nervous system, okay? So raise your hand if you can tell me exactly right now how your gallbladder is doing, if you have one. Nobody can give me the answer to that question because you don't know, because it's under control of the autonomic nervous system, which basically means pray to God that my nervous system is telling my gallbladder exactly what to do. The problem is that some of you're not taking care of it. You're in massive fight or flight. You can't digest your food. All of a sudden you have to go to the hospital, and then medicine wants to take your gallbladder out. No, we have to figure out why there's an issue in these two systems. So in that autonomic nervous system, there's your sympathetic fight or flight, which is, if I let a tiger loose in the room right now, what is everybody going to do? Yeah, so some of you you're gonna run. Like, and even if you think you're tough, your heart's gonna go a million miles a minute. You're not gonna think about making love. You're not gonna think about digesting your food, and you're not gonna think about sleep. You're gonna think, I got to figure out a way to get away from this tiger. And this is where 90% of you are in this room that don't sleep well. Okay, either trauma to the spine, trauma to emotional, chemically, whatever that might be, maybe even some of you spiritually, right? Like there's a component that can put that person into fight or flight. And so when you're in fight or flight, like I said, none of those systems are worried about working because they don't have to. I'm just trying to survive. Does that make sense? And then there's the other side of thing called your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest. This is where healing, immunity, sleep, mood, relaxation hormones. At the same time, I don't want to live there because then it's just kind of like I'm just here, right? But I also don't want to be like the go-getter, like, I can't calm down. Chiropractic and the adjustment and the 5 essentials of what we're doing help balance these two systems. Listen, healing happens when there's a balance between these two systems. Does that make sense? And the adjustment helps us do that. Why is this important? Okay, structure. This is one of the only ways, and there's some other ways too, heart rate variability, different types of testing and scans that we can do, posture, which is why we do posture. But why do we take x-rays? X-rays are super important. If someone's like, I'm not getting good sleep, I'm stressed all the time, my neck hurts, right? How can my neck hurting affect my sleep? Here's why. Structure determines function. Okay, a spine doesn't shift out of a normal position if the person's in a balanced state of neurology. The only time it would do that is if you were hit by a car, or you were in a car accident, or your high school football player comes across the middle and gets smacked and gets a whiplash injury, or you were a Division I. Those are traumas that happen. But in a perfect world, if I were to put you in a bubble, all of us should have this nice C-shaped curve in our neck, and that C-shaped curve in my neck lets us know that your body is in a state of balance and healing. Okay, so this is a neck from the side. This is an X-ray. We take a lot of X-rays in the clinic, and like I said, if you've never had an X-ray, this really lets us know where to go and what we're doing. we should have a 45-degree arc here. This is an actual kind of cross-section of the spine. This is the brainstem. This is where a lot of those neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine are produced. And what happens is without that curve in the spine or that spine being in a good spot, the spinal cord can't relax, and therefore I'm under constant tension. So everybody take your hand and go like this for me. Okay, this is, if you guys are sleeping, right? This is what the curve in your neck should look like. Now, I want you to pinch the skin on your spinal cord. Act like that's that. Now, as I begin to talk, I want you to slowly begin to do this. So I'm not getting good sleep. I got in a car accident. I'm on 3 or 4 different medications, right? Whatever. What's happening to the skin? It's tightening, it's stretching. And what that's doing, that decreases or increases the tone or the stress placed on the nervous system, which is putting you in fight or flight. And so we have to really begin to think about structurally, how is that going to affect me functionally when it comes to my sleep, when it comes to brain physiology? And then and this is not the point of this talk, but think about disc health. Think about, why is my spine breaking down? Like, why am I in so much pain? Why am I, why is my range of motion less? That's a side effect of we've lost that structure. And most of the time, those individuals also have issues regulating sleep and neurotransmitter function. This is an example of an individual. So about 8 years ago, I had a little boy come into our office, and he's out in Colorado now. Their family moved. But I wanted to share this story because some people think, well, sleep issues happen when I'm 40. Well, listen, if you don't get good sleep at 15, you're not going to get good sleep at 20. If you're not getting good sleep at 20, you're going to get horrible sleep at 30. If you're not sleeping at 30, listen, my 30s were like, I don't even remember my 30s. Like kids, craziness, so 40s are not good. And if you're not getting good sleep in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s can be hell, right? So this little boy came to see us, and his mom's like, he's not sleeping. Like he's bouncing off the walls. He wakes up multiple times a night. He's a bedwetter, right? So he's 8 years old, just chronically wetting the bed, which is sympathetic, right? Too many carbohydrates, too much stress, too hot of a metabolism. Therefore, I basically have to get things out, right? That's what a bedwetter will do. That's what night terrors are, right? Is that the body is just in massive fight or flight. This is where this little boy's at. Well, it got to the point where he's having debilitating migraines, and then he's also having seizure activity. So he's having about 20 to 30 seizures a day. This is an individual that's in massive fight or flight. Now, here's what's interesting. The medical community, whenever they took this little boy to the doctor, the neurologist, what do you think that they put him on? They put him on a medication. They put him on a medication that did nothing to change his neurotransmitters. Actually, what it did, it was almost like, hey, I'm tired in the morning, but I need to wake up, so I'm going to caffeinate myself and kind of deaden those receptors. And that's what medications do. They kind of deaden the receptor response. I minimize symptoms, but I don't change anything physiologically within the body. So then there's massive side effects. There's suicidal side effects. I don't know if I want to be alive anymore, because when you mess with the neurotransmitters and when you're pumping melatonin into an 8-year-old kid because it won't sleep, but it's not a melatonin issue, it's a neurotransmitter issue, you're creating a massive sewage dump, right? And so, he didn't come into the office until the headaches and the seizures got so bad where it's like, well, like most of the time, right? I've been to the neurologist, I've been to this place, like we don't really want to take these medications, I don't like who my kid is. And this is where we began to chiropractic. And I looked at the mom and I said, we're going to take an x-ray of your son's neck. And she was appalled. She was like, why would you ever want to take an x-ray of my son's neck? Like he's too young for that. And I said, well, I need to know what his nervous system is doing and whether or not he's in fight or flight. And the only way that I know how to do that is through some heart rate variability testing, some postural work, and an x-ray. Where's this little boy at right now at 8 years old? He's lost, so this is normal, 45 degrees. He has lost 90% of the curvature in his neck, and he's only 8 years old. So think about this. This little boy does nothing. Does he get better or worse? He gets worse. And I'll tell you, at 8 years old, medications, all the things. He can't sleep, he can't detoxify. You don't want to, this is the kid at 25 that just does not want to be around anymore. Like these are the kids that we see that massive depression, massive anxiety, all these kind of things. And so we showed this x-ray. Mom's like, oh my gosh, that makes total sense. Like, why hasn't anybody told us this before? What do you think the answer to that question is?
Medical community doesn't want you to know this.
I don't know if they just don't want you to know it, but they don't know how to fix it. So it's like there are certain tools that we have in our tool belt. If you ask Dr. Ethan, hey, what medication can I take to treat that symptom? He's going to be like, I'm a chiropractor. Like, I don't know. Like, let's figure out root cause. Like, they don't know how to do that. Like, someone would say, well, I went to my neurologist. Like, a neurologist today is really going to do some MRIs, maybe do some neurological tests with your eyes, and then put you on what? A medication. There's nothing functional with neurology these days, right? We have to rely upon physiology. Like that's all we know. Abnormal physiology creates pathology, right? God does not create junk. However, there are things that happen. So this is the x-ray we took. Now we put him on a care plan, right? This little boy was in our office. At our time, at that time it was my office, but 3 times a week for like 6 to 8 weeks, this little boy was coming in. He was doing his home care. He was doing exercises to help relax his spinal cord and put him into that position. This is the x-ray that we took of this little boy after 8 weeks. Okay? After this x-ray was taken, he was sleeping 7-8 hours a night. His seizure activity went away. He started playing baseball again. And he was a normal kid. Like I saw him for like 2 years. Him and his family would come in, they would get adjusted off all of their medications, just like the way that you would think like a 9-10-year-old boy needs to be, right? Crazy, bouncing off the walls, having a great time, just running around all over the place, like didn't miss any more days of school. And then they transferred over to a chiropractor in Colorado because their family was like, this is the way that we want to live our life, right? A very cause-driven, what is the cause-focused life, right? And I'll tell you that's not always easy because in the world we live in today, there's always something that we can take. There's always something that we can do that is going to treat the symptom, right? And I think when I started this clinic, and I think that what we are about right now is cause. And so sleep, unfortunately, it's not one thing. So go home today, and we're going to go through some things that you can do. But if you're not willing to remove the things from your life that made you sick in the first place, maybe we have to think about, why is it important for me to be healthy, right? And I love this, Hippocrates, if someone wishes to be in good health, one must first ask oneself if he or she is ready to do away with the reasons for the illness. Only then is it possible for them to be well. So maybe if you're a guest here and you've never had an x-ray and you're struggling, maybe you need to take a step back and say, before I think about putting something from the outside in, maybe I need to work from the inside out first, okay? That's number one. Number two, if you are a patient here and you're like, I'm not really doing my home exercises before I go to bed, you want to talk about like calming down neurology, right? Doing your exercises before you go to bed, waking up in the morning doing your stuff, making sure you're getting your adjustment schedule, making sure that you're, trying to do your best to set that timer for 60 minutes and go do something proactive before you can have your first cup of coffee, right? Exercise in the morning. Take the TV, go home this weekend, rip the TV off the wall, right? But tell your spouse before you do that, right? Like those things are important, but neurology and just like anything, you have to be willing to do away with the things that you know. Because I would ask you right now, that after everything that we talked about today, there's something that you're like, I'm doing that, and I know I probably shouldn't be doing it. And that's the thing that you should probably do away with right away, right? Maybe it's alcohol. Maybe it's like, I'm just not getting up in the morning, getting good sunlight. I'm under this. Whatever it may be, we have to do away with the things that make us sick. Action steps. So we're going to go into some just 10 points that you can take away. You can take a picture of it. You can write it down. We're going to do a question answer. If you're a guest in the room today, make sure that there's a mind neurological evaluation. We want to get you an opportunity to get checked. Fill that out, circle a date and time that works best for you, and there's a portion at the bottom For your credit card information, stop with the girls up front. Today, if you sign up for an evaluation to have an x-ray, it's $49, and that would include your first adjustment as well. Amazing opportunity. Also, for those of you who want to purchase supplements, okay, couple things. Supplements are 20% off today. The bundle is 20% off. Here's the deal. We put a bundle together because a bundle works better than individual stuff. Like if you're like, hey, I bought the L-theanine plus GABA, ain't working. I'm like, well, I mean, you probably should have tried the other things too. So that's why we have it as a bundle. Now, if you guys have magnesium glycinate at home, maybe you don't need to get the magnesium glycinate, and we have a percentage off the other ones. But the bundle itself is 20% off. There's a nutritional order form. Start filling that out now, please, because it's going to be kind of like, have you guys ever seen Lion King? Whenever the daddy lion's trying to save Simba in the bottom where all the buffalo are trying to go through? That's what it's going to kind of be like. So do us a favor, like circle what you want, get your information, drop it off at the girls up front. They're going to go ahead and get you taken care of for your new patient appointment or for your supplement order, okay? Just make sure that that's done so that way we're not standing up there and doing all that. Do that now. That make sense? Good? 30 days to amazing sleep. Dr. Shannon, Dr. Ethan, do you want to kind of go down through these?
We talked a lot about unplugging 30 minutes before bed, so no phones, no TVs. Yes, please get your cameras out and take a picture. This is going to be definitely what you need to kind of kickstart your amazing sleep. So the direct sunlight in the morning is going to help, like Dr. Ethan said, just increasing that cortisol in the morning and then allowing that melatonin production naturally through the rest of the day. So that by the time you're ready to go to bed, you're ready to go to sleep.
One thing, let me just add on that. If it, it's going to get earlier, it's going to get lighter earlier in the day soon, right? So there is something good that can come from the winter months. We get an opportunity to go outside in the freezing cold and get sunlight when we actually can. Okay, so there's some benefits to it. What if I can't? What if I'm at work and I do not have an opportunity to get in front of sun immediately when I wake up without sunglasses on? So Sunglasses Hut is responsible for more chronic illness than what you think. Okay, no offense. Polarized glasses, being out and not getting light into your eyes is one of the big reasons why it is that our sleep-wake cycles are bad. So a red light, right? So in the morning, this might be a Christmas gift, maybe, ask Santa for a red light. If you have questions about red light therapy. So when I get a shower in the morning, I have a red light lamp that is putting light on me while I'm naked showering, okay? I get full exposure to light. You can hang them in your shower. You can hang them, in your bedroom, in your bathroom, wherever it is that you're getting ready for the day. It's a way for, in the 21st century, for us, when we can't wake up when the rooster crows, to get red light or to get light into our body to energize our body and get that cortisol spike early. So I just wanted to add that for those who can't do that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And then with that, talking about the circadian rhythm like we did before, waking up and going to bed at the same time is going to help promote that circadian rhythm and that healthy sleep schedule. Lowering the bedroom temperature. So we talked a lot about core temperature. So allowing the room to be cold increases your core body, or yeah. So we want your room to be cold so you can kind of relax and get to bed.
what's a good temperature?
I'd say like 66 to 69 degrees
They
is what
say
I would do.
research says 62 to 67. So research says 62 to 67 degrees. So if you're at 75 degrees, you need to have a serious conversation with your spouse about this is what we're going to do, and then you just need to bundle up, right? So my wife is like this. I have a hard, I got to have, like, this is what research says, honey. I'm not, so just think about that when it comes to temperature.
Yeah.
These are easy things that you can do, right?
And then meal timing. So starting that first meal earlier in the day, ideally about an hour after you wake up, getting that first meal in and then cutting that food off earlier in the day so that you have better sleep.
Eggs.
Mhm.
Low glycemic index fruits. Quaker oatmeal, a bowl of oatmeal in the morning is not good for your sleep. It's also not good for your cholesterol. There's no research to prove that. I don't know who came up with that, but the point is that have some eggs, have some cage-free eggs, eat the whole yolk, right? Have a banana, have some protein and a little bit of fruit, maybe some veggies in there, saute some spinach or whatever. But protein in the morning, don't spike your blood sugar with a bunch of tons of carbohydrates, pancakes and syrup. Okay.
Yeah.
So then we also want to eliminate large amounts of caffeine. So caffeine within reason is good, especially between. We want to make sure that we're kind of cutting that down by 2 p.m. no later than 4 p.m. Especially if you have to get to bed rather early. I would say 4 is probably a little too late. Aim for more of that 2 p.m. and per dose. Like when you sit down and you have caffeine, don't reach for a 300 milligram Bang energy drink. Right? I don't think that's just a no for everyone, but coffee itself, 1 8-ounce cup is about just under 100 milligrams, anywhere between, depending on the roast, 65 to 100, but that's a whole nother coffee conversation. So we want to make sure that we're kind of cutting that down, tapering down by that 2 p.m. time. Okay.
So we're not allowed to have espresso martinis.
No, the majority of the time, but there are special occasions.
That's his favorite. That's
Right.
one of his favorite drinks. So
It is. Should have told him. But anyway, yeah. So as long as we're doing things right, 90% of the time, okay, you can still live 10% of the time and do some things outside of the framework. Okay, it's okay, but we should aim for 100%. But if we fall short a couple times, it's not the end of the world, right? But we want to make sure that we're cutting that caffeine down by 2 p.m. no later than 4 p.m. and we shouldn't be having massive energy drinks. Okay, so moving on here, no sugar, alcohol within 2 hours. Bedtime, again, that's just to allow your metabolism to slow down a little bit later into the evening, core body temperature to lower, right? Want to make sure we get in that nice restful state and make sure the melatonin production is optimized, is optimal, okay? So that's big there. Exercise 30 minutes daily, morning preferably. We've hit on this quite a bit. Want to make sure that we're getting that body temperature raised in the morning, okay? Not at the end of the day when we're trying to get to bed. Kind of kickstarting that metabolic rate, kickstarting that cortisol. It's just exercise is a tool to build muscle, but it's also, we don't think about it as a sleep tool, do we? We don't. So it's really kind of upping that cortisol. And then physical stress too increases cortisol. So you can get a real big spike in the morning, and then that'll just taper on through the day. So exercise is one of the best tools early in the morning. And it's cold outside. So if you want to lower your core body temperature, or you want to raise it, you just go outside early in the morning. It's cold right now. It'll continue to get colder. That's a good way. Take a morning walk. It's nice and cold, right? So that's a good thing as well. The magnesium glycinate, the GABA, L-theanine, ashwagandha. The reason why it's even in a bundle is because they work one off the other. Okay, that is the most optimal stack of supplementation that you could use for sleep. It's also the best well researched, right? So magnesium glycinate, good for overall relaxation, enters the blood-brain barrier, binds to GABA. GABA is actually the precursor to melatonin. So it's a metabolite of melatonin. So when you have GABA, you're just gonna have better production of melatonin. It's gonna kind of give you that boost or kind of help out a little bit. The L-theanine is also well researched in its effects with like caffeine crashes, reducing caffeine crashes, and increasing like focus, mental clarity, focus, relaxation. So L-theanine is just great overall. And then ashwagandha is in a class of its own called an adaptogen. It does exactly what it says it does. It helps you adapt to really anything. And when bound to these other supplements, it's going to help you adapt to better sleep-wake cycles. Okay, so ashwagandha is kind of a catch-all. Yeah, and taking it at night. All these are taken at night, right? So they're taken together because they work together. Okay, and then get on a chiropractic care plan. Take care of your nervous system. Make sure you're taking care of your nervous system so that all of this can come together and function optimally, right? Because if you're subluxated, if your nervous system's not working well at all, we're kind of just beating our head against a wall with a lot of these, hacks or tips or tricks or things that are going to optimize our sleep. We got to take care of our nervous system first and get adjusted, right? So that's the most important.